Good afternoon, Melbourne. Real quick, can everybody hear me? Yeah? Perfect, okay. It is so nice to be back in this city. This is my, I think, third time here. There was supposed to be a hype video that was gonna play before this and kind of get you guys all hyped up to hear us talk. It's not gonna be there, unfortunately. So what I wanted to do, and first I guess I should introduce myself. I'm AJ Shipley. I run a portion of our product portfolio at Cisco, specifically our threat detection and response in the security business group. In a moment, I'm going to be joined on stage by my colleague, Kevin Kennedy, and we wanted to spend the next 45 minutes kind of providing a double click or a little bit of a deeper dive on some of the things that you heard this morning during the keynote, specifically around security. And every year we come to a conference, and I will tell you, I've been in security for over 25 years now. Every year we kind of show up at a conference and we talk about some of the latest adversaries and the threats that we're seeing and what's going on in the industry. And we're gonna do a little bit of that today also. But I will tell you probably for the first time in my career, the type of threats that we've seen in the last year are unlike anything that I've ever seen in my life. And the reason I say that is because we have detected and found very sophisticated nation-state adversaries in every single service provider network in the US and around the world, in every single critical infrastructure provider, in every single power plant and power generation operator. And maybe for the first time, they're in there and they've been in there for a while and they're not there to steal intellectual property. They're not there to ransom the systems and ask for a bunch of Bitcoin payments. They are there specifically to turn out the lights at just the right moment in order to be able to further whatever aims that they have. And in an AI world, and you've heard us talk a lot about AI this week, and we're going to continue to talk about it, this becomes even more of a challenge because increasingly all of the applications, including our new unified compute system, are being pushed out to the edge because that's where AI really needs to be able to run. But it didn't just start with AI. So we had video cameras out at the edge. We've got kiosks. I came through a kiosk at the Melbourne airport in order to scan me. And for the most part, we've known how to secure these applications because every application kind of followed a similar format. There was a presentation layer. That's the thing that you interacted with or interfaced with. There was the core application in and of itself that did all of the interesting work. And then there was a data layer that was underlying that application. But things that have really changed in this AI world is that now there's an introduction of a fourth layer. It's a model layer. All of these applications now are getting some type of model. And there's two things that are true about these models. One, they learn every single secret that we have because as we interact with them, they store that information to then improve on the model in the future. And two, they are not deterministic. And from a security perspective, we're talking a lot about how we're going to use AI to build security products. But when you ask a model the same question 3 or 4 times in a row and you get 3 or 4 different answers, that's a problem for security. Because we need to be able to get the same answer to the same question over and over and over again. And so how do we secure these applications that are being pushed out to the edge in a world of AI when the adversary is sitting in all of our critical infrastructure and all of our service provider networks in order to turn out the lights at the right time? And so we're going to walk through how we do that. You heard this morning that from a Cisco perspective, we're focused on really 3 core capabilities: AI-ready data centers, future-proofed workplaces, and then digital resilience. And you heard Jeff say that secure global connectivity is the thing that spans these 3 areas that we're focused on. Well, from a secure global connectivity perspective, in security, we are focused on delivering a security platform. And the security platform that we are delivering is called the Cisco Security Cloud. And inside of the Cisco Security Cloud, we have 3 core capabilities. We have our user protection suite, which is how we secure your users getting access to an application in order to be able to do their job. We have the cloud protection suite, which is how do we secure the infrastructure that those users or now those agents are traversing in order to get to the application or the asset to do their job. And then we have a security analytics and response suite, which is how do we detect when an adversary has got in and found a way to exploit an organization so that we can get them out of the environment and get back up and running. And how we do that predominantly is using our zero trust access solutions for the user protection suite, our hybrid mesh firewall solutions for the cloud protection suite, and our SOC of the future, or our security operations center of the future, for the security analytics and response suite. So I'm going to be back in just a minute to talk a little bit more about the SOC of the future. But now I'm going to invite my friend Kevin Kennedy, Vice President of Product Marketing, up on stage to talk about the first two.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so let's start with zero trust access, which is, as AJ said, connecting the extended workforce, so users, agents, and things to the applications and resources that they need to do their jobs. And so this is two components. It's access, so we want to make that easy, quick, resilient, reliable, and it's about zero trust, so least privilege, both in who is allowed to connect and what they are allowed to do. So one of the foundations for this solution is a single client that goes out to all of your users. So it's easier for you. This has a bunch of different functionality in it. It's easier for you to roll out. No one likes more agents, but more importantly, this helps to drive the overall frictionless user experience. So it's really simple. They authenticate once, and then they get to work. So all of the rest, that plumbing, is what we take care of. So let me give you one example. There's a lot of focus going from remote access VPN to zero trust network access. What does that mean? VPN, wide open. You connect once, you have broad network access. With zero trust network access, it's application by application access. So much better from a security model standpoint. One of the challenges, though, is that zero trust network access, there's an app connector that goes between the user and the application. That's what allows it to be application by application. It's basically a proxy. And from what we've seen, 60 or 70% of apps, they work just fine with that ZTNA proxy. But the other 30, 40%, they were written in a different era. They're not proxy aware. Maybe it's the server initiates the connection, maybe it's peer-to-peer, or maybe, like, who knows, it's a proxy, it just broke. And so in those situations, now your user has to know, do I go to the VPN? Do I go to ZTNA? It's broken. But what we're able to do with this solution is it has both. And so if it's on zero trust, it goes to zero trust. If it's VPN, it goes to VPN. There's a service built in. So the user doesn't need to know. They don't have to be aware. They just authenticate and get to work. Similarly, from an authentication standpoint, we have a technology with Duo that's baked into this, which it's called Passport. What it allows is that single authentication once at the OS level, and then all of the authentications, as long as nothing significant happens, it just works. So log into a thick client, log into a browser, cross-browser, private apps, public apps, the authentication just works. And so again, they've authenticated once, they just work. And so I'm going to come back to this in a little bit, but we have significantly extended Duo. If you know of Duo as a great MFA, it is, but it's a lot more now. I'm going to come back to this a little bit later. And then one of the other components that goes into this solution and into that unified client is experience monitoring. And so we embed the Thousand Eyes client in this because this is still an access solution. And we know that the number one thing that people want from the network and connectivity is that it works. And so in addition to providing the security, we are measuring the performance. And if there are issues, then showing exactly where that is, whether it's on the client, whether it's in Wi-Fi at home, whether it's in the ISP, helping to pinpoint and resolve that quickly. And this works together if you have Thousand Eyes deployed into your network as well. This will work together, add more information and more context. Now, when I talked about that authentication, you just do it once and get to work and it keeps working and keeps authenticating. That may sound like a challenge from a security standpoint, but don't worry because the identity is continually being assessed. So if something changes, then it's reevaluated. So for example, if you move from the home network or an office network into a coffee shop, now you're going to re-authenticate. So it'll force that. If a host firewall turns off, maybe malware got on there and it turned it off, re-authenticate. If there are logins that are being failed, even in things that are not Duo or this system, it's either in Entra or somewhere else, that's seen and it'll reduce the access level. So very, very good at providing a simple experience, but also being very secure. So Zero Trust Access doesn't stop at just delivering that connectivity and that authentication. It's also looking at what users can do when they are logged in. One of the more interesting areas for this is with use of AI in the workforce. So this is ChatGPT and Gemini and all of these, or it's more special purpose models. Many, many users are going to these tools so that they can do their jobs better. Now, the challenge from a security perspective and a risk perspective is you can put lots of data into these AI tools. We've seen uploads of source code, of customer lists, of PII. There's all sorts of things that can go into these prompts. Again, not with bad intent. People are just wanting to do their jobs better, but it's a big risk. And we know from history that if you try to block these, people will just go around them. And so what we have baked into this solution is the ability to actually understand what's happening in these prompts to AI applications. We're actually here using AI to protect AI, so analyzing them, understanding the intent, understanding what types of data are going up. And so now you can allow the connection and feel confident that if it has information that you by policy don't want to allow, it will be blocked. So a very, very significant capability. Now, all of this sounds simple, but it takes a lot of technology to work. It's built on a foundation of Cisco SASE. So this is SD-WAN from a networking standpoint brought together with secure access, which is SSE, with Thousand Eyes assurance. So that's the foundation. But to get zero trust access, we need more. So we've taken it beyond that and also tightly integrated identity. And this is both Duo, more from a user and an application standpoint, and in the future, agents, and ICE, which is much more about things and the network. And so I mentioned before, Duo has gone well beyond just MFA. So that's what it's known for, super simple, complete MFA. Now it's extended. So over the summer, we added a directory. It is a full stack identity and access management solution. And we already have over 1,500 customers who've deployed. Feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. And there's a lot of capability here. All the security, of course, is baked in. There's identity intelligence, which is helping with posture. So you'll see things like your admins who don't have MFA or additional controls, all sorts of good learnings. And when there are threats or things, this is cross IDP, so it's pulling information from not just Duo, but from Entra and Okta and any other identity infrastructure you have. But there's even better technology or more cool technology in this end-to-end phishing resistance. So as the adversary has learned and expects MFA, they've learned to go around it. And some of those things are attacking your processes. So things like help desk. I lost my laptop, can you reset me up with MFA? And that's really hard for the help desk because they don't know whether they should do it or not. Really hard to deal with an angry client calling in. This has photo verification, so show the driver's license, take the picture, help the help desk through that. There's another really cool thing that goes back to kind of the core of what Duo is about in simplicity. So the technique, are you familiar with MFA fatigue or push bombing? to bypass MFA? Okay, so you log in halfway across the world, you keep doing it. There's a second factor, but it just keeps hammering someone until they press, okay, allow it, and now they're in. If you go back 10 years, we all looked at MFA as a token. You had an RSA token, it had the one-time password. And now it's hard to imagine that. There's a reason that MFA didn't get broadly adopted. One of the major innovations that Duo brought was they were the first ones to say, hey, let's use a phone. Just put it on the phone, and that made MFA pervasive. Now you look forward, we have YubiKeys and other hardware tokens. One of the biggest benefits that they bring is they tell you that when you are authenticating, you are next to the system. It's a lot of technology, a lot of complexity just to say you're next to the system when you log in to make push bombing harder. So Duo, again, has innovated with proximity verification. It uses the phone. Bluetooth Low Energy says you are near the system. It has the same AL3 level of assurance for anti-phishing as a YubiKey. Now, there are places you won't be able to use a phone, you can't have it, but for many, many mainstream applications, this works really well. And then the other thing, you'll hear this come up repeatedly from a philosophy standpoint. We believe we need to meet you where you are, not require rip and replace. A lot of people have invested a lot into their identity infrastructure. We're not going to ask you to change that just to adopt. That's not reasonable. So Duo can also work. You can if we've had customers replace Okta and others with this, but it can also be used as an identity broker, which means it layers onto your existing identity infrastructure. It offers the security features as an additional layer. We've also seen use cases, especially in deploying it with zero trust network access and more the SASE projects, where it's used, you keep your IDP for all of your employees, but in those projects, you may need to allow third parties, contractors, vendors, access, and you don't want to deal with all of the complexities of working with the identity team on that, so you can have your own little island to put the vendors and third parties into for zero trust network access, and then you can evaluate what you want to do over time. So that's Duo. And that's really good for users and applications, but what about all of the things, the devices, the smart IoT, the robots, all of those things that are also a part of your network and need to be controlled? Well, we have an answer for that as well. How many of you use ICE? Probably 50%. So this is technology that can profile, identify devices, and then it puts a tag on them that are on the traffic coming out of them that can be used both locally to segment within the local network. But we also extend this across the WAN into the security service edge of secure access. So now you can define policies that say, hey, this camera, it can access its update service or its an application related to that, but it can't go to the CRM, right? So it can't get to the customer data. So very common sense policies that extend not just into that apply not just in your local network, but extend across the WAN. Now I saw about half of the hands in the room went up. ICE is an incredibly powerful capability, incredibly powerful product, but richness comes with a price. It is complex. And so there are many organizations who look and say, I just don't have the people, the time in order to deploy the servers, to deal with the policy configuration. And so just today, this went GA. The product managers are in the room here. This went GA Access Manager. And so we have now embedded core capabilities of ICE with Meraki. So what does this mean? You have no servers to deploy, it's a SaaS. The configuration is integrated into dashboard, so you can be up and running in minutes with this. Now, it's not the full feature set of ICE. There's trade-offs. It works with Meraki. It only has the core capabilities. But this is a massive step forward if what you're using is basic VLAN segmentation in your network today. You can do a lot more, have a lot more flexibility, a lot more identity capability without the complexity of traditional ICE. Okay, so that's user protection. Let me switch gears now to cloud protection. And if Zero Trust Access and user protection is focused on securely connecting your workforce to the applications and tools that they need to do their job, cloud protection, as AJ said, is about protecting those applications and infrastructure. And so here it's hybrid mesh firewall. Has anyone heard the term hybrid mesh firewall outside of from us? So this is an industry term. Gartner now has moved from next-gen firewall to hybrid mesh, is what the MQ that they published. IDC is calling it hybrid firewall. What this basically is in the industry parlance is take a bunch of different form factors of firewall appliances. It can be physical, virtual, cloud, even firewall as a service, and let them be managed as one thing, right? So solving the policy complexity of different types of firewalls. We think that's really good, but we think it's not enough for what the needs of distributed applications are. And so we take it a step further. We do that, but we take it a step further. And we bring in this hyper distribution into the fabric of the network where you can get into all of these rich, high throughput east-west flows and into the fabric of the cloud, both container networks and workloads with eBPF technology. So this is a Linux kernel feature that allows deep visibility into the kernel from outside. So there's some amazing things that you can do with this. And third-party firewall support. This goes back to meeting you where you are. Many organizations have multiple firewall vendors. We want to bring this value into those environments so that you can manage the policy. We're not asking you to rip and replace. You can age out that technology. Now, the core of this is still the firewall, and we've made significant steps forward in our firewall portfolio, including just now, just around the corner, we'll be shipping both a branch firewall, the 200 series, great throughput and encrypted threat performance for the branch, and a high-end firewall for the data center. Very, very high performance density. These numbers keep going up, but it's currently in a 2RU. It's 570 gigabits per second of L7 threat inspection performance. So this isn't just firewalling. This includes the L7 and modular scalability. So N+1 clustering. If you need more throughput, you can just drop another unit in and it scales up. So all of these are the last two pieces in the puzzle for top to bottom price performance leadership in the firewall portfolio. So some really great stuff here. We have the firewall appliances here, the 200 and the 6100 if you want to see them. We also, this was covered in the keynote this morning as well, but we had a lot of interest in the value of firewall telemetry for detection is tremendous, but it's expensive, it's hard to get into SIMs, and so both from a technology standpoint, with the Splunk team, we've developed a bunch of new analytics working on firewall logs, and we have now, from a commercial standpoint, made this affordable, it's free to ingest the logs from Cisco firewalls. Okay, so another technology, and this gets into the hyper distribution, is the smart switch. So it's a new class of switch that uses hardware acceleration to fuse security directly into the network. So it's a switch with two personalities. You have the networking personality where you want things to be reliable, stable, to change as infrequently as possible. And then you have the security persona where you need to have rapid change to keep up with the threat landscape. And so now you can have both in the same appliance, and the security team can have their own lens into it, so they can lifecycle manage it, control policies, all distinct from the networking side. So the networking side, forwarding packets quickly, reliably, all of the things you expect there. Security processor is inspecting and helping to identify friend from foe. AJ talked about the attacks against infrastructure, Volt Typhoons, Salt Typhoon. You can read about these, a lot of coverage on them. As we dug in, one of the learnings, which is maybe not a new learning, but it goes back to patching is hard. And it's especially hard to patch infrastructure, but patching applications and infrastructure is very difficult. And we've seen, it used to be weeks, months, even years for an exploit to be weaponized in the wild or be seen in the wild. Now it's down to minutes. In fact, in 2024, the median time for a critical vulnerability at the edge to be actively exploited in the wild was 0 days. So we're now down to hours. And with some of the advances in AI, there's research that shows success rates of 87% in taking the text of a CVE and creating exploit code. Think about what that means. 87% success rate, read the CVE, create exploit code. And AI is getting better at finding vulnerabilities in software. Google has shown a bunch with this, with their DeepMind and Big Sleep programs. So we know we have to get better here, and it's very, very difficult. It's just not reasonable to expect that you can patch a bunch of things in just a few hours and maintain operational stability. So we have a major focus on helping to find where there are vulnerabilities that are critical in your environment, and then deploying in an automated way a compensating control that shields that vulnerability. Now, these are not patches. You still have to go back and patch, but they buy you time. They buy you time to do it right within your change control processes. And once the patch is done, it's detected, and the compensating control is removed. So this is done at the process level, so it understands it's a Postgres database. Here's the process, very, very targeted, so this is different than a lot of the virtual patching attempts that have been done in the industry over the last years. Now, I mentioned this isn't just about applications, it's about infrastructure. So yes, you can patch it with the mesh at different layers from the workload in smart switches in the network, or sorry, not patch, run a compensating control. We are also adding this into the infrastructure. So starting with Nexus switches, it's called Live Protect, and this will shield vulnerabilities in Cisco gear. So new CVE comes out, there's a compensating control that you can deploy to protect your Cisco infrastructure without requiring reboot. So we think this will be a game changer. So let me last hit on AI defense. So AJ talked about the non-determinism in AI models and the challenges that this provides, that this creates for security teams. And so you can think about it as these models, they learn your secrets, and then they can be tricked into revealing them. And this is the challenge. If you play a game of 20 questions, I have a secret, can you guess my secret? That's kind of the game that's going on. Well, we take an AI protecting AI approach here with algorithmic red teaming that runs that game of 20 questions 1 billion times against these models to say, where are their vulnerabilities? And then it creates guardrails out of those that are deployed in the hybrid mesh firewall. So really importantly, this is not something that you rely on your development teams to do. They can still put guardrails in. The model providers can put guardrails in, but this is a consistent set of enforcement that you have across all of the applications. Even as the underlying models change and get refreshed, you will have control over that. And this is natively supported in Splunk from the day we shipped it. Now, a lot of this in the hybrid mesh firewall, it comes back to this promise of no rip and replace. You write your policy once, you enforce it anywhere across this mesh, so your enforcement points change, your policy doesn't. That is security cloud control, so it manages the policy for all of these different enforcement points from Cisco. It manages AI defense, and it manages the third-party firewall policy. And we have recently added the Security Cloud Control G8 in March. There's about 5,000 organizations that are using it today. And we just added multi-organization support. This helps MSPs to use this, but it also is helpful for organizations that basically run as an internal MSP with a centralized IT org and a bunch of different regions. So that is hybrid mesh firewall. I'd like to now bring back AJ, who's having a nice conversation on the side here, to close it out with security analytics and response. Oh, don't trip.
Please, don't trip. That would be bad. Thank you. Awesome. Okay, so I'll take us home. So the third part of the security cloud, what we call security analytics and response, is really how do we apply analytics on data in order to be able to detect adversaries when they're in their environment and then get them out of there. Now, traditionally, I think the challenge that we've had, and you actually even heard us talk about and announce the Cisco Unified Edge device this morning, is that in the Security Operations Center, in order to actually be able to do anything of interest at all, you have to get all of the data across your enterprise into a central location. But all of that data lives in a lot of different locations, out at the edge, in different cloud service providers. And so there's always been this kind of challenge of distributed data, but a need to centralize it in order to derive some sort of insight. Until now, we've solved that challenge with the SOC of the future, and let's start with how we're handling data in a distributed fashion. So there's lots of data being generated in your environment, and this is only increasing from an AI perspective, as we've talked about. And as I mentioned, right now, that data is sitting in Microsoft or Google, or maybe it's in some of your security products like CrowdStrike, or your security analytics lake like Cisco South. And this data is everywhere. And in trying to move that data to a central location requires a lot of cost and a lot of compute power. What we've done with Federation at Splunk is to make it so that we can run searches on that data where the data resides without having to bring all that data to the search. So we bring the search to the data to be able to ask questions. And those questions could be observability questions like, show me the overall performance of my network or where there's bottlenecks. Or they could be security questions, like let me write a detection for this adversary like Volt Typhoon, but let me look across my data stores in my S3 buckets or my Azure Blob Store or my Google Chronicle instance. And Splunk's data management is how we've achieved this. But it's not just federating the search and the analytics. It starts with understanding how you want to handle your data. You may want to redact some data because you have PII information and you need to get that PII information out of it for privacy concerns. You may want to filter the data to deduplicate it, because there's no sense in having 8 copies of the same thing if you really only need 1 copy. So being able to filter, redact, and then route that data to the right location is the first step in Splunk data management. And then once it gets to the location where you want it, because again, you want that data, if you remember back to that application stack that we showed, where there's the presentation layer, the application, the model, and the data, you need that data close to the application to be able to do something interesting with it. And that application could be running up in Amazon, it could be in your own data center. But then with Federation, federated search and federated analytics, you can now go into your central Splunk instance, write a search, and it will reach out to the data in an S3 bucket, it'll reach out to the data in a Snowflake bucket, or it'll reach out to the data in any of your Splunk instances, and it'll run that search without the data having to come to Splunk. And in the future, this will get extended to Chronicle and Microsoft and all of the other places where data is residing in your environment. So now you don't have multiple copies of data floating around, you don't have to move large amounts of data to the Security Operations Center in order to get value. The data can stay where it's at, and we will bring the analytics to it. So now that we've kind of solved the data fabric challenge, if you will, let's talk about what we're doing to deliver this SOC of the future platform into the Security Operations Center and how we're centralizing these capabilities. At Cisco, we believe that the Security Operations Center needs 3 core capabilities. It's SIEM, it's SOAR, and it's XDR. Quick show of hands, how many security people do I have in the house? And if you're not a security person, that's okay. Okay, so SIEM, SOAR, and XDR, the easiest way to think about it is these are products that allow us to detect the behavioral characteristics of a bad person operating in your environment and then take action on it. And the difference between a SIEM and an XDR is that with an XDR, like Cisco XDR, the detection engineering is being done by Cisco and Cisco Talos. So Cisco Talos is sitting there looking across Cisco's 1 million+ customers, writing content to be able to detect adversaries' tactics and techniques and procedures, and then pushing that out to the customer so that we can see it if it's in their environment. And with SIEM, like Splunk Enterprise Security, which is the 10-time Gartner Magic Quadrant leader, the best SIEM in the market for 10 years in a row, it allows a customer and a customer's team to write their own detections. Let's say you're a service provider customer and you have a special relationship with the federal government. The federal government shares intelligence with those service providers because the backbones power our nation's infrastructure. Cisco may never have access to that intelligence. But you as a customer may have a team that wants to write those own detections, and for that you use a SIEM. So that's the difference between XDR and SIEM, and then SOAR is security orchestration, automation, and response. That's how we're able to take action, like update a firewall rule, change a VLAN setting in your switch so that we can segment the network or keep an adversary from getting access to it. So this is SIEM, SOAR, and XDR. We believe that every SOC needs a combination of SIEM, SOAR, and XDR, and this all sits on that Splunk platform, that data management platform, so that we don't have to move the data to this location of SIEM, SOAR, and XDR. And this needs to work with all of the products that are in the environment, both Cisco products as well as third-party products, because a lot of our customers have products from Palo Alto or CrowdStrike or Checkpoint or Arista or Juniper or HP, and all of this data is valuable. And now, with Splunk Data Platform and our SIEM, SOAR, and XDR capabilities, we can ingest both native Cisco telemetry as well as third-party telemetry without having to move the data around and be able to detect adversaries in an environment and take action and do something about it. Now that we have this unified SOC platform, there's really 5 capabilities that are necessary that we've built into our unified threat detection, investigation, and response capability. The first I've already talked about is this federated data management. And we've talked about why it's important. We can't move all of this data around, especially when the data is growing exponentially because of AI. So we solved that problem. But maybe the most important thing that we have to do is we need advanced threat detections. Because that Volt Typhoon adversary that I talked about and Kevin named, or Salt Typhoon, which is the same adversary, but in all of those service provider networks, or even Arcane Door. And you can go Google all of these, which is coming after Cisco firewalls. Those are very sophisticated adversaries, and we need the advanced threat detections to be able to see them when they're in the environment. And then ultimately, we have to be able to investigate, to understand what did they get access to? Did they get access to critical information? Did they steal any information? Are they still in the environment? Have they left something behind? All of these things, this investigation process, used to take days or weeks. But now leveraging AI, we've gotten it down to minutes or seconds. In fact, there's one customer using this product who said with our agentic investigation capabilities, they've taken the time it takes to do an investigation from 8 hours down to 5 minutes. And that customer actually happens to be a hospital, a children's hospital, and said to us specifically that this product is saving people's lives because they've shrunk that time down, which is the best testimonial you can have. And then ultimately, detection and investigation without the ability to take action, i.e. respond, is useless. Response is the name of the game. And that's where the SOAR capabilities in our unified TDIR come in. We have both automated response actions that we can take, as well as we've given the analysts or the partners who are operating these networks on behalf of their customers the ability to automatically take updates, make rule changes, take action like isolate an endpoint device, wipe it, open up a ticket in ServiceNow to go re-image it. All of this full automation capabilities. In fact, we're leveraging the same technology that you saw in the keynote this morning with the Meraki workflows that were automated. It's the exact same workflow engine and automation engine that's being used in Meraki is being used in our unified threat detection, investigation, and response platform. And ultimately, all of this has to be delivered through a unified analyst experience, which is what we've done. Cisco XDR 2.0 we announced back in the spring, and there's 3 core capabilities in it. Instant attack verification with agentic AI, which is where the agents are operating on behalf of the analyst to go do that investigation. An automated forensics capability, which captures over 350 pieces of evidence off of an endpoint. Things like full disk copies, all of the browser histories, full memory forensic dumps, all of those capabilities that a security team needs when something's happened to be able to understand the extent of it, is available now in Cisco XDR. And an attack storyboard, a way to tell a story about what happened to the analyst so that in 20 seconds or less, they can very quickly understand and be able to take action, are all part of our Cisco XDR platform so that people can get started very quickly and build a security operations center. And then as their needs mature with Splunk Enterprise Security, they can go even further. They go from 100 integrations with third parties up to 1,300 plus integrations with third parties. The ability to take action across all of those different products that are integrated in the environment, with the ability to write custom detections and craft those detections, and all driven by Cisco Talos Threat Intelligence, both with on-premises as well as cloud deployment options, and even air-gapped options for those federal government customers that have to have an air-gapped solution. And so now the SOC of the future no longer has to force you to choose between distributed data or centralized data, because through the use of AI, we can let the data stay where it's at, but deliver all of the detection and response actions on that data necessary to be able to detect those sophisticated adversaries, get them out of the environment, and then update the infrastructure so that they can't get back in a second time. We call this the SOC of the future. For any of you security folks, if you want to see more, you can go see a demo of it in the Cisco or Splunk booths of both XDR and Splunk Enterprise Security. And I'll finish up just reminding us all that the Cisco Security Cloud is how we are delivering a security platform to protect the 3 core pillars that is part of Cisco's strategy: digital resilience, future-proof workplaces, and AI infrastructure. And that's delivered through our Zero Trust Access solution, our hybrid mesh firewall, which Kevin mentioned, and the SOC of the future. Thank you guys for spending your time with us today. If you have any questions, you can find me or Kevin afterwards, or please go see a demo out in this show floor. Thank you.